Well, thank you. So how many of you are familiar with Athena? Probably all of you. Okay, so ran that organization for 2 years and was recruited away by Sony because they value diversity and inclusion so much that they really wanted the executive team to understand the importance and the DNA and the return on investment of diversity and inclusion. And I got to just say, I was really delighted when I got the invitation from Kathy, because I know Mitchell is very much the same way, because you girls cleaned up at Athena Awards in 2017. So congratulations to you for being such an awesome company. And I'm pleased to speak here. So little asterisks, I'm going to talk about brand, the value of brand, and then I'm going to talk about how that sets you up for negotiation. Anyway, I like to laugh. There's a few jokes in here, and hopefully I'm not offensive. I don't think I'll be. I think I'll get you guys to laugh. And if not, have some more wine. Okay. See, this is what Georgia does. She has me karate kick out. So one of the things that I do as the head of corporate communications is I'm responsible for being the innovation evangelist. Sony is a company, 130,000 employees, more than 2,000 SKUs in the North America market, and not really a company that externally brags. It's culturally, it's very inward facing. And so part of my role is really talking about all the wonderful innovation in robotics, in STEM, and how diversity and inclusion helps that. And then of course, supporting the corporate communication structure across all of our businesses, and employee communications, which is a lot of fun. So that's me. A little bit too close, a lot of me there, but my story in a nutshell, I believe that my timeline in my career has given me a unique perspective. And when I first graduated from San Diego State, I was interning at Channel 8, turned that into a job, and then on to Channel 10. So I was in broadcast news. And at that time, in broadcast news, we were really building the very first websites. It was, KFMB.com and the San Diego channel, which is now 10news.com. And I remember being so excited at that time because we were democratizing basically the sharing of information. So we were going from this broadcast format to this website format. And for a world where we acquired news from 3 primary networks and CNN or 4 primary networks, this is really interesting to me, and I got very excited about the power of social media as it started to come along, because I had witnessed the very narrow channels of broadcast news 20 years ago. From there, went on to mp3.com. You may recall that was the highest IPO in San Diego, digital music company. Metallica sued us. Sony sued us. That was funny in the interview process. Multiple lawsuits for digital rights management, but no less a leader for San Diego and a leader in innovation. Onto a Linux company, 10 years at Qualcomm, rounding out Qualcomm's, exiting Qualcomm Labs, which was a group that was internal ventures. And so that was very excited, but really started out as a journalist, to a PR person, to business development, into all around mini CEO of projects with these labs. And it dawned on me is that as I set my goals for where I wanted to be, that sometimes that organization would not be able to give that to me for a variety of reasons. And that if I wanted to be a CEO, I would have to go out and make that happen, on my own if I wanted that timeline to shrink. So I left Qualcomm. Started a company called Social Global Mobile, and I was CEO, and I got to pay rent, and I got to pay electricity, and I got to do all those things that CEOs do. So that was great. And Athena was a client, so that's how I ended up taking over Athena. I ran my business as well as led Athena for 2 years, and then on to Sony. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. As I said, I'm going to talk to you about personal branding. I believe very deeply in this, again, because you are in charge of what you vision cast or what you put out there about yourself. And if you don't take charge of your own branding, who will? No one else will. And as I said in the beginning, there's a real value there. There's a fiscal value there. So I'm gonna hit on that. But it's an ongoing process of establishing an image or an impression in the minds of others. The three main points I'm going to touch on is exactly that brand, how brand and negotiation work together, and then I'm going to leave you with my personal philosophy, which has worked. Take it or leave it. But at the end of the day, I hope, or at the end of this talk, I hope that you can find something that's insightful, and hopefully you find value in this discussion. So why do you need a personal brand? As I touched on, you have to take charge of your own brand because no one else is going to do it. I mentioned real fiscal value. Fiscal value, and throughout this presentation, I'll pepper this with data points about that fiscal value. So it's not ego. It's about transactional value. I'm going to focus on the negotiation side about what that means specifically when you're looking at jobs. But these negotiation tactics, as related to your brand, really work in a lot of different scenarios as well. Another reason why you really need to own your personal brand is not even just professionally, it's personally. If you have a fascination with, I don't know, making kombucha or something. Anyone drink kombucha? All right, 3, 4, this is good. See, I can tell you have healthy, glowing skin. Very good. But whatever your passion is, you can vision cast that out there. And I've just been so delighted of the connections that I've made for personal things as well as professional. Also, too, this is your competition. I needed to add Batman in there too, but the bottom line is that the appearances is, especially as it relates to the marketplace, is a competition is fierce, and everyone looks like a hero, or so they appear to look like a hero. Right? That was me this morning. I'm just teasing. That's where we laugh. That's a joke. I really wasn't crying at the sink. But the bottom line is that at the end of the day, life is a big part of our perception, is how we vision cast our life is really important. So it's appearance, it's attitude. I think I went back. It's your attitude, your work ethic, and your experience. But ultimately, it's a plan against a timeline. So can I ask, how many of you in this room are on social media personally? And would you, of those same people, would you consider that you have a brand plan on file for your personal, if you're comfortable with sharing that? Okay, great. Awesome. That's pretty good. Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, because I literally am going to talk about what is that brand plan, which is not so different than what you probably do already for your company and your organization. How many of you are in engineering? Okay. Marketing? Administration? Okay, so I think we got a little bit of everything there. A lot of my talk is geared towards professions where maybe you're not doing so much marketing and you're so busy making valuable impact for your company that sometimes you forget to lift your head up and say, well, what does this mean to my personal value, and how can I highlight some of those successes? So it's about the brand plan. So the basics, you got to own it like a boss. Develop your professional image, your headshot. Understand in tandem with that what your online audit looks like. Have you gone and Googled yourself and find out that you're not, there's there's hundreds of Cheryl Goodmans out there, by the way. Most of them are really far more attractive than me. So in some ways, maybe that's an advantage. But also it helps you upgrade your network. And so I believe that we're as powerful as the people that we know, especially in a community like San Diego, which even though it's a 3.5 million population, 3.5 million people in this city, this community is highly technical and highly networked. So if you have a bad reputation or a good reputation in this community, I think it's very known. So your network is critically important. And that's using things such as LinkedIn and the LinkedIn publishing tool to vision cast what you care about, what you cherish, and what excites you. And ultimately, it's out there showing what you know in a way that's genuine and authentic. When I was running Athena, and I would speak to groups of engineers and those that were really kind of offended by personal branding. I often got that question or the comment that, Cheryl, this is for people that are egocentric and that are obsessed with themselves. And I can't reemphasize enough that it is, you're negligent if you don't nurture your online presence, because that is that real value. So this isn't about ego, it's about equity, right? Brand equity for yourself. So in developing the image, a lot of these are the basics, right? I mean, obviously your attire, your hair, your makeup. I mean, this girl does not have the corner office, right? She's still looking for it anyway. It's how you act, your attitude, your behavior, body language, how you present yourself, how you think, how you speak. And I think it's not these practical, literally how you speak, but are you speaking, are you just waiting to speak and thinking about what you want to say as opposed to actively listening? Are you making connections? I think these are all really important things that total up to your brand. But the larger thing that I think is a very practical tip as you think about building your own brand is, are you leveraging your network internally, one, within your own organization, and externally? So internally, that would be oftentimes, and PR people, give me an amen if you agree with me, that we don't always know who the subject matter experts are and who those people are that really want to tell the story on behalf of Mitchell International, on all the things that are happening in robotics and AI and software and all of these things we would not know. So you do have to approach your PR team and you have to say, I'm good at this, or I aspire to this. And so by building that very basic plan of where you want to be and what you want that to look like, and then working with your internal PR team, is really a win-win for everybody. So that is my recommendation, and I would love it if people would do that at my company. Instead, I have to chase them down the hallways and then say, you're going to do a speakership. Oh, we went to her already. Okay, so how many have Googled themselves? Okay. You know, and do you like what you see? Yes. So, yeah, cool. All right, who said that? All right, what comes up when you type in your name? And by the way, what's your name so I can Google you today?
Alex.
Alex, okay. So Alex, when you Google, are you looking for things that have been published on your behalf, news articles? What are you looking for?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out if there is any stuff out there that should not be out there.
Ah.
And so far, I'm pretty happy.
That's very good, and I think that's really one of the primary reasons why that you would want to do that. I've worked with executives at Qualcomm whose names were compromised, who, as we went forward to try and build their social media profiles, that their names were so fundamentally compromised in ways that I won't even articulate, that it's essential, just as you would do a credit check for your credit health, that you do go on Google and that you look at what's out there. What you're probably going to find is something that's very similar to what I found as I started to really build my own online presence. And I really started to do that when Twitter launched in 2009, really trying to wrap my head around the fact that we had this open platform that I could send a message to anyone in the world, unfettered by assistants or gatekeepers or anything else that have that direct access. It blew my mind. So I immediately was on Twitter in 2009, and before I signed myself a handle, I went in and Googled myself, and I really didn't like what I saw. I saw a lot of people, like I said, hey, some looked a lot better than I did. Some of them had some pretty nice criminal records, so that was interesting. You know, a few arsonists in there and whatnot. But the net is I knew that I had to, in order for me to take charge, I'd have to come up with my own moniker. I hate my middle name. It's K, K-A-Y-E. I have a twin sister named Cindy Faye. Is yours K too? See, I love your name. Yeah. But it's like Cheryl K, and I'm like, oh, I really hate this name. But I had to come up with a way that I could stand out from the other Cheryl Goodmans in the world. So I assigned the handle to myself, CK Goodman. I use CK Goodman through everything, and every brand since 2009, and actually a little bit before, is I use at CK Goodman for everything, and it's really been streamlined. just a note there, the difference between that is huge, because my entire compendium of public works from Qualcomm all the way back to even pre-Qualcomm is in this nice compendium, and I'm proud of it because it's stuff that I've been publicly talking about that I care about. STEM, women in leadership, work-life balance, technology, robotics, AI, you name it. And so that third-party validation that happens when someone says, should we put her on the CES panel, or should she be invited to be on this board, then I have a lot of comfort that my online presence is consistent with who I am. And I would say that's your first step into building your plan. Know what you're dealing with. The other element of this is networking with peers and professionals. So I'm really delighted that this community, again, is the stellar Athena credentialed pedigree winners, and that Athena. I can't recommend Athena and groups like Athena enough, because it is that network and is that community, and that's where real opportunities and business development opportunities. I can't tell you how many deals have been struck on behalf of knowing the right people who were funding ventures, or growth was happening. So being in those network groups are very, very important. Joining professional associations for things that you want to get stronger in. In San Diego, we have so many good groups. The national organization, WITI, is definitely a good one if you're in technology. Even if you're not, if you're representing technology for your company, it's a good organization. But I want to call out two that I think are often overlooked, and that's the Economic Regional Center and the World Trade Center here in San Diego. So they are very, very heavily into social media. They support I believe, in a way that's very genuine, younger employees that want to get out there. Not that they don't support all range of employees, but what I'm saying is that they really know how to market toward millennials and get millennials excited about the fact that understanding government structure, power, political systems is important. So I really highly endorse having some role or presence there, and then if not, to really look at sitting on boards, getting on boards, starting out with nonprofits. There are so many good nonprofits in San Diego, so that's really a great first step to start to highlight what a leader you are, and to help fully round out your external presence. Also the local business chambers, North County Business Chamber, San Diego Chamber, both great organizations. And Georgia, I think you added that in there, is tag the post, check your local industry leaders and mentors and see which associations they tag. You'll see that I think EDC probably comes up to the top, because they're just so darn good at being relevant, real, and authentic. None of this matters if you don't know your stuff. You can put together this wonderful exterior veneer on all of your experience, but when the rubber hits the road, it is, what are you going to do to solve problems and to lead in this world? And whether it's for your job, again, the nonprofit board you want to lead in, or the association. And so I always recommend that if you're not a subject matter on something, become a subject matter on something, whether you are in engineering or marketing, whatever it is. That's really your cornerstone to what your success is going to be, is to become a subject matter expert. In this way that you are then, you will evolve as a thought leader, because you'll be this compendium and you'll have some authority over time with this. So reading industry publications, but then ultimately, as you are doing this, you're integrating this. At some point, you got to publish, right? You got to talk about it. So I love the LinkedIn publishing tool. I love it because, again, here we have this great network that anyone can communicate with, and very quickly these articles can be generated, and you can start to build your persona. So that's a very high level. Building that brand. Before I go into why that works and how that lever works for negotiation, are there any questions, comments, thoughts, suggestions? Should I dance? Nope. All right, cool. So we'll go straight on into negotiation. So we've established that knowing your platform for your presence is really no different than if you were to put a house on the market and you had curb appeal, right? That's all it is. You have curb appeal, you got a real estate, you're listed in the MLS, your value is so well articulated, and that's what you've done. You've basically put your value out there. Now what are you going to do with that value? You're going to negotiate. I've geared this topic or these data points specifically to this group for the Women's Empowerment Network. So men, I think this is very valuable information as well. So please don't feel like I'm excluding you. It's actually for you too. So the last measure on the wage gap for women is 82% of what men would make. And this is data just pulled just last week, right? Sony, Mitchell, Intel, and all of a sea of companies are really working hard to equalize pay. So kudos to Mitchell and to Sony and to others who do that. But by and large, we still have a gap. The industry will tell you that women are simply not qualified in STEM, which would say this is a pipeline issue, that there's just not enough smart women out there commanding pay. And I don't necessarily subscribe to that. And depending on what data you look at, you'll come to your own conclusion. But in large part, the reality is there's a negotiation issue, right? There's a do I understand my value issue? Well, you can't negotiate something you don't understand. So that was the piece of the brand part. The thing that really sent this home to me is when I really started to dig into this, probably in 2010, was a staggering statistic that women retire with about $500,000 less in their retirement accounts. And that's the aggregate lifetime of not asking for raises, not asking for promotion, not understanding your value, and not pulling it all the way across the line. So again, this isn't about ego, this is about financial stability. And financial stability is about giving you choices, and having choices makes for a good life. So it's about having a good life, right? So I think that's a huge point. Stats also just pulled this week to just make sure they were fresh. 7% of women negotiate upon receiving a job offer, as opposed to 53% of men. And so want to dig into a little bit about why that is. I don't know that every single job offer is a perfect fit for everyone. Maybe there's fear there. I'll segue just a bit and let you know the last project that I did for Athena was a commissioned study about what San Diego women want and what their biggest challenges were. And the number one documented issue was fear, which I thought was really interesting because in this survey we also pulled salary data, and these women are pulling down some pretty big bucks, right? So these are the last people that you think would be fearful. But it is fear. And this thought is, trying not to generalize, is that a lot of women feel like it's rude, and they say, I don't want to ask, why would they not provide me a fair offer? And the reality is business is not about being fair. Business is about get the lowest that you can in order to sell for the highest. So you must negotiate everything with your kids, your husband, the drive-through, not really. That probably wouldn't work. But you must negotiate. You have to adopt a mindset of negotiation because it is, I believe, critical to your long-term financial wealth and health and well-being. A Harvard study actually just came out this last week, and it was really tracking over the last decade graduate students. And the graduate students that came out, women were making $115K upon graduation on their first job offer, and men were making about $130. So you kind of go, well, that doesn't seem right. Okay. 10 years later, you fast forward, and actually I think we got this backwards in our slide, but women were making $230,000, men were making $400,000. And what a delta. Like, how did that happen, right? So And keep in mind is that the graduation rates for women and men are about equal right now. I mean, we're on pace. The matriculation rates through college and advanced degrees, the pipeline is healthy, right? But we still have this issue. And so this issue continues on and is really prevalent in your 30s and your 40s. And so again, one way to combat that is to really to understand, again, are you negotiating because you understand your value? You know, do you speak a different language? Do you know something that you're not celebrating publicly? So again, very important. So the bottom line is, got to know your value. You have to articulate your brand. You have to do your research. And to me here, this whole presentation comes down to one really amazing factoid, for me anyway. You can hire an analyst, right? In the next negotiation that you do, financial negotiation, we're not just talking jobs, we're talking a series of transactions. Hire an analyst to be able to help you negotiate real value. I think it's very smart. You have to think about what outcomes you want and how you're going to get to those outcomes. And also to think about other factors when you go to negotiate. What is your wish list? What would you absolutely need to have? And then what are other things that are less important? All seems very straightforward, but I think in the moment, fear comes up and we say, no, it's a reasonable offer, I can deal with it. But you have to absolutely understand that value and follow it up with an ask. I do have a story, I'll not say the names to protect the innocent, but we have in my career, and especially in the last, 6 or 7 years, there's been ask for that pay raise. And I'm telling you the same thing right now, ask for whatever that financial thing that is you're trying to negotiate. I would just warn you and caution you is that if you do not have the credentials and you do not understand the baseline value, don't ask. I have seen many cases where someone would come in because they were coached to ask and they asked and somehow they pulled together a good story and then they got this great number and then got in and couldn't perform. Couldn't perform at the rate they had negotiated at, and then their reputation tanked, and it's a problem. So all of this is based in really in truth and in integrity and in skills and really going out there and being honest about what it is that you are doing. And you look like a very honest bunch, so that's not to imply that you're not. But anyway, I think it's a word to the wise. So there we go. Another factoid. So going more now into my personal philosophy and using some data to back that up. So I'm 20 years in the technology industry. I have 2 sons. I was just telling Eileen earlier, this is gray hair, not blonde hair. They drive me crazy. I love them, but they drive me crazy. Women with children make less, make up the bulk of who make less. Women that do not have children are almost very close to the pay range for men. So it's only a 4% difference. And so that's kind of a disturbing fact because it's like, well, what, are you not supposed to have children? No, all I'm saying is that know that. Just know that that's where the data is. And I think there's a page that we can take from international playbooks about how paternity leave for men is important, how equitable duties at home is incredibly important. And then as Cheryl Sandberg had said in her book, Lean In, which I believe was 2010, is part of your career strategy is who you marry or who you partner with or who you commingle with. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing a full-time job when you go home too, your likelihood that you're going to be an optimized contributor, top of the stack, executive office, corner office, the statistics aren't very strong. And so I think it's a really important fact that can't be overstated. Again, my personal view. These 2 guys look like really good dads, right? This is the joke portion. So, so just take your pick. They're wearing a baby Bajorn. So anyway, So as I round out this very high-level overview of brand and how it's important for how you negotiate your financial equity over a lifetime, I just want to leave you with my philosophies. And I've given this keynote on the 4 Ps and the 3 Ps. You guys get the 2 Ps. And the 2 Ps are every single day, if you can chart progress, that's all you need to do. You know, I think it's overwhelming to look at these statistics. I think it's overwhelming when we couple in personal relationships on top of that, and somehow we're supposed to pick the perfect partner and be the perfect executive and all of these things. And I would just say, ask only of yourself progress every single day and measure that to the best extent that you can. And this is really driven when you have those very finite goals. And it's like, if you've taken 2 steps toward that, great, because tomorrow you'll probably take a step back, but just keep tracking that progress. And then perfection. I believe that perfection has really no place in how we live our lives. I mean, it does have a place. If you're a surgeon and you're going to operate on me tomorrow, I'm going to really like you to be perfect. But in most other cases, I believe that perfection, sometimes, especially as women, we want things lined up. We want it perfect, and we can get very overwhelmed, again, generalizing, speaking on my experience, kind of projecting that on you, making some assumptions. But perfection will be your Achilles heel, because that emotional energy that you have to hit some perceived mark in your head is probably, your standard is probably higher than others. So I'd say take it easy on yourself. You don't have to be perfect. Just make progress. And I will end with telling you that Sony, very much like Mitchell, is a fabulous place to work. We value our employees. We're committed. And I just wanted to share with you, these are our male champions at Sony. That is Kaza Rai, chairman of the board, ran PlayStation for many years, and then Mike Fasulo, who is my boss and the president of Sony North America. So thank you for allowing me to represent my company and my personal thoughts, and I hope you've found that valuable.